If you're looking for a podcast about horses that speaks to your soul, Find Yourself on a Horse is the answer to your dreams. I'm Penny Hawes, also known as the Horsey Life Coach, and my goal in life is to help women transform their relationships with their horses and ultimately themselves, one breath at a time. Find Yourself on a Horse, the podcast. I'm Penny Hawes, aka the Horsey Life Coach, and I've been an instructor, trainer, and coach for a long time, decades. I've taught adults, kids, pony club, 4-H, therapeutic riding, and a wide range of other equestrian activities, including side saddle, on both sides of the Atlantic. My mission is to help women transform their relationships with their horses and ultimately themselves, one breath at a time. I love empowering women in the barn and beyond. And I also love acronyms. They make things easier for my ADHD brain to remember. So when I was thinking about all the components of my coaching framework and trying to distill them into something that was easy to remember, I created the acronym STABLE: Successful Transformation and Balanced Life Experience. It pretty well covers what many of my coaching clients experience. Successful. Let's start with success. It's always a great place to start. Horsewomen often find success with my programs because I've spent decades teaching and coaching, and I've learned a lot from my horses and students over that time. No experience is ever wasted, and every moment can be a learning moment. Success is a goal to which most of us aspire, but the definition isn't the same for any two people. To attain success, you first have to know what success is. You have to know what it feels like. You have to have belief in your horse and yourself, and what some would call grit. I don't define success for my students and clients. I just help them assemble the toolkit they need to create their own version of success. Transformation, the dictionary describes it as undergoing a change in form, appearance, or character, or becoming transformed. Well, discontent and unhappiness often occur when a transformation is needed. At some level, we're not happy with what's going on in our lives, and the gap between where we are and where we want to be is like having a pebble in our shoe. It annoys us to the point where we finally decide to do something about it. That is the beginning of our transformation. One of the great things about transformation is that it's happening every second. One of the not so great things about transformation is that, it's happening every second. The problem arises when we simply allow our transformations to happen to us rather than being intentional about their creation and having them happen from us. For example, maybe your horse spooked while you were mounting and you developed an uneasiness but figured you'd get over it. So you didn't actively work on transforming that uneasiness back into the comfort you'd had previously. Left unattended, it gradually grew into fear, and now you're finding excuses not to go riding because the idea of mounting makes you want to run screaming into the hills. That's that pebble in your shoe. And then one day, the pebble in your shoe becomes a boulder. A friend asks you to go for a trail ride. It's the perfect Saturday. The trails are beautiful. A long leisurely hack is your absolute favorite antidote to a long and hectic week. But there sits that fear. And suddenly, it's harder and more inconvenient to be afraid of mounting than to decide to do something about it. Whether you do some tapping or visualizations to calm your amygdala, or get your friend to hold your horse while you get on, or follow another strategy, you're motivated enough to make that transformation intentionally. With intention, we can create transformation that brings us closer to our goals. And remember, transformation rarely happens overnight. It takes work, tenacity, focus, and occasionally some pixie dust. There are days, and sometimes, if you're like me, weeks or months, when it seems like no progress is being made. But then one day you look back and you realize that all the work you've been putting in is finally starting to pay off. So my transformation framework is 5 simple steps, not easy steps, 5 simple steps. Number 1 is decide what results you want. Number 2, evaluate where you are right now. Number 3, reverse engineer a plan to get you to your goal. Number 4, get to work on that plan. Number 5, review and revise. So, step 1, decide what results you want. Do you want to compete in show jumping at international levels, or enjoy spending quiet time with your horse as a rewarding part of the lifestyle you've created for yourself? Neither choice is wrong, but either one might be wrong for you. So the emphasis here is to pick the results that are important to you. This can be harder than it sounds. One method my clients have found helpful is to visualize how they want to feel when they've achieved success. Have you ever done one of those goal-setting exercises that has you looking 5 or 10 years into the future? Imagine your perfect day, what you'll eat for breakfast, what your kitchen looks like. I don't know about you, but knowing what I'm going to have for breakfast tomorrow is up in the air. Breakfast in 10 years? Yeah, no. Instead of focusing on the tiny details that can lead a brain like mine down a rabbit hole of looking up breakfast recipes and picking the perfect curtains for my future kitchen on Pinterest, I encourage clients to think about the overall feeling they want to experience in their lives. Personally, I'm all about a laid-back lifestyle with a lot of white space. No adrenaline seeking here, except for roller coasters, because I do love a good roller coaster. But knowing what we want our lives to feel like not only gives us a slightly broader target, it also gives us something we can work toward by incorporating some experiences of that into our life right now. So if I want to create some more white space in my life, I can get up a little earlier, make sure I meditate, enjoy a cup of tea before I get going into the more structured part of my day. Step 2 is evaluating where you are right now. You're just learning to canter, but you really want to be an international show jumper? Bravo! Just be very realistic about your starting point. Don't shrink your dream. I can't stress this enough. But be ready to invest the time it takes to achieve it. It can help to get some input from others on this step. Women often have a habit of undervaluing ourselves and our accomplishments. Get some objective feedback from your instructor, a coach, or a horsey friend that isn't afraid to tell you the truth. Step 3, reverse engineer a plan to get you to your goal. If you're going on vacation, there are steps you need to take to get there. If the goal is Hawaii, you'll need a hotel, a flight, and a rental car. Before you can reserve them, you need to pick your travel dates. Before you can pick your travel dates, you have to know when your vacation from work or school is. And you have to go shopping for that bikini before you can hit the beach. Well, the same is true for your success plan. If you're that novice rider who wants to be an international show jumper, work backward. What do you need to do before you're jumping 6-foot fences? Well, jump 4-foot fences. And before that, maybe ride at the regional level or jump 3'6" fences. And before that, local level and 2'9" fences. And before that, you need to learn how to jump cross rails. And before that, you need to solidify your seat and your position on the flat. Step 4, get to work. So going back to our example of the rider who wants to be an international show jumper, they worked backwards, and their first step is to solidify their position on the flat. So they could take lessons on the lunge line, ride in 2-point over uneven terrain or trotting poles to build up their strength and their balance, do Pilates and strength training so their body is strong. If you're a rider, you're an athlete, so you need to treat yourself like one. And remember, if you build this foundation firmly, the rest of the structure is solid. Step 5, review and revise. Sometimes you need to course correct. One of my favorite analogies is sailing a ship. You don't just hop on in New York, set the coordinates for Southampton, and go pour yourself a gin and tonic, although that actually sounds pretty good. You constantly need to course correct to account for the winds, tides, storms, and the like. So for your riding plan, say you tweaked your back and you missed a week of riding. Or perhaps that Pilates routine you're doing is so effective that your instructor says your strength and balance are doing really well, and you're ready to move up a step a few weeks ahead of schedule. It's really helpful to reevaluate on a regular basis. Don't leave things too long and discover that you're heading to the South Pacific instead of Southampton. Although, wow, I think I might like going to the South Pacific. Anyway, you don't want to lose precious months. By the same token, keep strengthening that patience muscle, because remember, this work does not happen overnight. The pursuit of life balance, note air quotes there, it can become quite a slippery slope. Just like success, life balance means different things to different people. And if you're looking for the scales are absolutely level kind of balance, you're probably going to need to review and revise that too. Instead of life balance, I prefer balancing life experience. This isn't about cutting out overtime at work so you can get an extra ride in every week, although that sounds like a great place to start. This is about looking at the bigger picture and not just by the numbers. So many hours worked over here earns you so many hours of play over there, but by what you are actually experiencing, as in, yeah, you guessed it, how does it feel to you? If you're feeling constant pressure and guilt about trying to get to the barn every night after work, can you go 3 nights a week? If you're in a self-care board situation, can you trade off nights with another person at the barn? If you're worried that your horse needs to be ridden more than your schedule will allow, is there someone else who could take up part of that? Maybe your instructor has a student who's looking for more riding time, or a fellow boarder's horse is laid up or retired. Think through your options and see how each of them make you feel. After all, you don't want to go from one unworkable situation to one that's equally bad or worse. So go with your gut. How does this decision make you feel? How do you think you might feel a year from now if you go with plan A? Well, how about plan B? This is your life, my friends. Find a way to make it work for you. My hope is that this stable framework is something that will help you live your best horsey life in the barn and beyond. And because this is our first full-length episode, I want to give you a little bit of my backstory and tell you about 3 of my favorite equine teachers over the years. We start with O'Malley, who was the perfect first horse. She was a working cow pony in Montana until a few weeks before I bought her, which I found out a few years later. The dealers my parents bought her from asked me if I wanted to ride English or Western. When I said English, I was treated to a long and detailed and totally fictitious story about the girl who had owned her and showed her English for years and was only selling her because she was going off to college. It was such a nice story. Thanks to the happy synchronicity of O'Malley having a brand and a friend of my mom's having an old brand registry book, we actually tracked down her original owners. We ended up going to Montana to meet them, and I got to ride O'Malley's mother on a genuine roundup. Tell you what, even being eventing level fit, which I was at that time, riding in a Western saddle for 11 hours made me almost too sore to walk the next day. The photo on here is of my little 14-2 hand mare tackling a pretty good-sized cross-country jump at a pony club rally in 1976. The middle picture is of Accolades, fondly known as Laddie. Laddie is a current partner in my life, and he's as old as dirt. Well, he's as old as 33-year-old dirt anyway. And he's very, very, very wise, and to be honest, a bit of a wise ass too. He's smart and funny, and he loved to jump. He's retired now, but when he was 26, we went on a hunter pace, and he got so excited that I was finally going to let him jump a real fence, a 3-foot coop, instead of the little 18-inch stuff we'd been hopping over, that he left out the last stride and launched. I launched somewhat further beyond the jump than he did and landed on my head, cracking my helmet. It was a really good fall. But in my concussed state, I knew I had to get back up on the horse. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with a coop, coops are triangle shaped, and the top of the jump is the apex of the triangle. Now, Laddie is 17.1 and I'm 5'5" and have sort of a tricky back. Here we are in the middle of the woods, and the only way I could get back on was to climb onto the very narrow top of the coop and back into the saddle. Laddie, who I am sure was rolling his eyes at this point, very patiently lined himself up with the coop and leaned in a bit so I could get back on. Did I mention that I really hate coops? The lovely mare on the right is Bella. She is my teenage OTTB, or off-the-track thoroughbred mare, and the first mare I've owned since O'Malley several decades ago. After spending most of my career riding geldings and stallions, although we did have a few mares over the years who were exceptional lesson horses, it's been a wonderful learning experience to have a mare again. Bella and I learn something from each other every day, and I can honestly say that she's helping me to become a better person. Hopefully, she thinks I'm becoming a better partner, too. Here's some of my contact information if you'd like to get in touch. You can visit my website at thehorseylife.com. I'm on Instagram at thehorseyLifeCoach. I'm on Facebook at facebook.com/thehorseylife. Or you can email me at penny@thehorseylife.com. I just want to thank you for spending a little time with me and listening to this very first full-length episode of Find Yourself on a Horse, the podcast. I hope to see you next time. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Find Yourself on a Horse, the podcast. Want more information and inspiration just for horsewomen? Hop over to thehorseylife.com/toolkit and grab your free copy of the 10-Minute Toolkit, a collection of powerful portable exercises I've put together to help you live your best horsey life.